everyone. Welcome to the PrepZone Podcast. I'm your host, Estevao Divino, and it's a pleasure to have with me today the Staples volleyball boys head coach, John Sedlock. How are you, Coach?
Good. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Coach Sedlock has been the Staples volleyball coach since 2019. You're entering your sixth season right now. You won the state championship back in 2019, your first year. You began your coaching career in Shelton and Darien. You coached up there. You played volleyball at the University of New Haven, where you're still the all-time dig leader. And you have one sister named Katie.
Yep.
And your mother and father both played college basketball.
Stars.
Yeah, and is that how they met?
No, it is not how they met.
Just a coincidence they both played basketball.
Yes.
Okay,
both very, very good athletes.
Yeah, well, it's like, if you're an all-time dig leader at a university, I'm sure you did your share of things. So
Sure tried.
Coach, let's start talking about last season.
Okay.
It was definitely, I followed it closely. Kind of a tough season for you. How do you evaluate what went on last season, and how do you look at it from, now that we've pretty much a year removed from last year? Walk us through a little bit what your mind was last season like.
It's very tough when you lose not one but two captains in the preseason, and as a coach, like you have a season coming up. You say, okay, I know I have these players. I know it's looking like this, it's looking like that, and then when things happen, you kind of have to just deal with it. And yeah, it was not the most ideal situation, and the injuries they had were severe. It's tough, but when you coach, you have to be prepared to adapt and overcome anything that comes your way, and you have to just be ready to roll with it and make a new plan and do the best that you can in the moment.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like in high school, you're almost starting over every season, right? There's always something that tends to happen that makes you do that.
Never know who's going to walk in the gym for tryouts. You never know who you're going to lose, as you just mentioned, but that's coaching. That's coaching. And
when you look at a season like last year that, it's like you said, you don't know you don't know how many losses you're going to have, but eventually turn them a lot. But how do you keep the team motivated?
No matter who's playing, the team goal is the same. We want to win these games. We want to, at the beginning of every season, we make a team contract. And the boys, not me, the boys come up with how they're going to hold each other accountable, the goals they want to achieve in the season, and it's my job to put them in the best position to achieve those goals, no matter who is on the floor, no matter who is part of the team. And that's just what we got to do. That's what you have to do when you come in the gym every day and you work hard.
Yeah, and they always say the best teams are kind of player-led, right? I mean, the players kind of hold each other accountable.
Right.
They're just providing them guidance.
Right.
And as you look to this year, how do you think you're going to be compared to last year? And I want to put this in a way, like sometimes when you had to play a young squad like you did last year, you kind of reap the benefits on the following years. Is that what you're looking for this year?
This year, I'm looking for... the state is wide open as far as like the talent goes, especially in the FCAC. A lot of the teams are very even. Darien is definitely going to be one of the top teams as usual, but I think a lot of the other teams are going to be top contenders as well. And it's going to be a tough season for us, for sure. But like I said, we're going to come up with our goals in the beginning of the season, and I'm going to do my best to get those boys in the best position to win and achieve those goals.
When you look at the goals and you think like, well, are the goals always, about the FCAC, the state, or is it more of like a team development goal? For you,
For me, I would say it's team development versus like the outcomes, because we could say, oh, we want to win states, oh, we want to win FCAC, we want to like blah, blah, blah. But winning doesn't equate success to me in that sense, because you can be the greatest team and not win. You can get upset. You could be the favorite and you can get upset. It's the individual players, where they're at the beginning of the season and their goals that they have and their weaknesses that they have. If we can make those weaknesses better and not weaknesses towards the end of the season, everybody can get better from the start to the end. That's improvement. And that's what I'm looking for out of my boys.
And you touch on something that I think it's really interesting, right? I mean, we're in a town where sports kind of crazy, right? Everyone looks at it.
Yeah.
And it's always judged by wins and losses. Whether what you said there about development is really important, because you're just trying to make the athlete a better athlete and a better person, rather than results for the team per se. So how do you coach that through the year, and what is the mentality behind that?
Well, I think it goes back for me. It goes back to the team contract, because when you're coaching a team and you're winning, it's very fun. Everybody's happy. You know, we're 6-0, we're undefeated, we have one loss, you know, whatever it may be. But when you're losing, it's not so fun because you're working so hard every day at practice, and sometimes you lose. You lose. But like you said, with this young team, it's good because these boys are getting all kinds of varsity experience at the young level, so that in the next season and the season after, when they're out there again, and it's 23-23 and they have to serve an aggressive serve and not a lollipop to just keep it in because they're scared, they're going to be able to do it. You know?
It is, because it's about handling, and we've had athletes here that talk about handling the situations. Right, and I think last year one thing you did is you brought up a lot of, you know, of young players to be part of that, and you kind of teach them to handle that situations. And I feel like a program is always going to be better for it later on. And as you go into the season, how are you going to try to get those experiences they had from last year to help you with this season?
For the boys that were put in those situations at a young age last year, now it's going to just be, they're going to be used to it. For the newer guys, that's what practice is for. Practice for me is I put them in situations where it's not the first time. Like, practice is where I contrive these situations where it is 23-23 and we're doing a scrimmage drill, so that when they go out there, they can succeed, or at least put themselves in the best chance to succeed. But for the other boys that have been there, I'm looking to them to be the models for the younger guys and to perform the way that they know they can perform now. And they're not, and the nerves and all that stuff it's all gone.
And I mean, the program, when you look at it, I think it hit COVID didn't do much for you guys as far as numbers go.
Right.
When, you know, if someone's watching this and they're thinking about, well, you know, how does the volleyball team work? Is it a cut sport? Is there a JV freshman? Walk us through how the state of the program is right now.
So we have not had, just for context, the year 2020, which was the COVID year, we had, I think it was 38 players signed up for tryouts.
Wow.
Yeah. I have not had numbers even close to that since that year. I mean, currently right now, including returners, there are 23 boys signed up to try out for Monday. And we are, what is today? Thursday, right? So we're 3 or 4 days out from tryouts, you know? So it is tough. And me not being working in the school anymore, I can't, you know, I can't see the 6'4" freshman walk around and say, hey, what do you do in the spring?
Right.
You know,
should be playing volleyball, right?
it's a
great middle.
You know, it's a little tough. So I put recruiting heavily on the captains for this year, especially. And we definitely got some new players for sure. And I'm excited. We have a big freshman class trying out, and that's really good.
That is good.
Yeah. I think as of right now, we have 7 brand new freshmen that are signed up to try out, and that's really good for the future.
It is, because you have to always think about the future. I mean, I know it's like, I always think the mind of a high school coach, it's got to be going 100 miles an hour, because yes, you want to always play your senior guys because they're going to be done. But at the same time, well, how about next year? I got to get these young guys in here to play. Right. How do you manage that as a high school coach? I don't think I ever asked a coach about, you know, thinking like, how do I think of the present or the future? Or do you don't think about the future, just think about the present?
I think more so about the present, because that's what's happening currently.
Fair enough. Okay.
And, you know, the future, you know, the younger players who are, hopefully they return, you know, and then they'll have their time. But if we're in a position, if we are in a position where we need to win, the best players are going to play. And that's also something that I put on the players at practice. You know, I say, we're playing a team who doesn't have the best serve receive, and I have 3 players who have okay serves, you know, but only 2 of you are going to be able to play. And I'm going to be watching today at practice, and you guys have to really show me that you can be on the floor tomorrow. I put it on them. I keep them accountable. They can challenge each other, and that's what it's all about, because those players are going to be the ones that you want on the floor.
100%. And I think it was the first when I had the football coach here, and we were talking about, like, you know, starter versus non-starter reserves. And he told me one thing that's, and you'll probably agree with it. He said, when we see a kid doing well in practice,
Mm-hmm.
we're not thinking of ways not to play them. We're looking for ways to play them.
Right.
So practice means a lot.
Yes.
And
Practice is very important. Very super, super important. Every day at practice, there's a goal. There's something we're going to work on. With our schedule the way it is, our practices are always lined up the day before a game. So a lot of times, the beginning of practice will be skills, and then the last, I don't want to say half of practice, but there will be a significant portion of practice that will be dedicated to the scouting report that I make from watching the film of the other teams. Or actually, to be completely honest, I don't like scouting like digitally. I love going to the games and seeing the teams play. I feel like I can see more. There's mannerisms, there's emotions that you can't tell from the video, especially if you're watching a video and there's no audio.
Yeah.
But there are definitely things that when I go to scout in person, I see a whole lot more than I do watching a video.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Even, as I cover the sports, there's nothing like being a live event.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing like it.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it. And it's interesting you mentioned, so you do a fair amount of scouting then for
Oh, yeah.
for the season. You guys,
Oh, yeah.
So you kind of go into a game with a game plan
Mhm.
for that team.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. You have to. You have to.
I guess at this level you have to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's, when we look at, high school sports, I remember when I played, you kind of just showed up.
Mhm.
You knew nothing about the other team.
Mm.
But as times evolved, that's being a big part of it.
I think it differs from, every coach has their own philosophy. And also, not every coach has all the free time in the world. I have a little more free time than a lot of coaches that I know. So I dedicate that time, especially when I'm in season.
Mm-hmm.
That's my main focus. There's nothing else. There's absolutely nothing else that matters when I'm in season with these guys.
Yeah. Listen, you said, in focus and all that. I want to just go back a little bit. What's your fondest memory of the 2019 season, of the state championship season? I always like to ask those questions because, or maybe like a backstory that you're like, man, at this moment I knew we were gonna be good. There's usually that aha moment or something that happens that kind of, gives you that.
Wow.
Seems like a long time ago. But
It seems like a lifetime ago.
Right?
Now. It was, yeah. My fondest moment from that season. This is a little bit of a selfish memory.
That's
okay.
Yeah,
However, you asked.
Yeah. No, that's what we're here for. Yeah.
So the state finals that year were played at Shelton High School, where I'm from.
Oh, okay.
So that was a very surreal moment for me. Getting off the bus and walking up the steps that I walked up for 4 years and walking to the gym that I played, because I have plenty of fond memories from my time as a high school athlete at Shelton High School with volleyball. And I remember walking into the gym and thinking to myself, I really hope I have a fond memory coming out of this game, because we were up against Darien.
Uh-huh.
And they were very good.
It was a 5-setter, wasn't it?
It was a 5-setter. It went right down to the wire. We had lost to Darien, and we had 2 losses in the regular season that year. One to Darien, that was our first loss, and then we lost our last regular season match to Danbury, at Danbury. Danbury had a very, 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 very good outside hitter named Kaique, and loved the kid. Played.
That's a Brazilian name, by the way.
Listen,
Brazilian.
this boy looked like a man out there. Okay,
because Kaique is a Brazilian name. When you said it, like, I know that.
I got to see him a lot in club as well, and he was very, very good. And Danbury had a pretty good setter during that year, and they were pretty good. We beat them in the first contest we played. And then like I said, the very last game of the season was their senior night, and we had to go to Danbury. And if you've been in that gym, it's not very big. Yeah, there's not many bleachers. But every single person, it seemed, was there for Kaique.
Wow.
To see him. And he had a game, let me tell you. I do not remember. I think it went 5. And it was very much the Kaique show. He decided, he woke up that day and decided, today's my day.
I'm not losing.
And we're going to beat Staples, yeah. And then we turned around and had to play them in the first round of FCX that year. The second round, where we took care of business. Went to the FCX finals, lost to Darien in 4. So we knew exactly what Darien had, and playing against Darien is very tough to do simply because Coach LaRusso is their coach, and my money is always on Coach LaRusso. Like I said, I really wasn't sure going into that game how it was going to go. We had a very good the practices leading up were all scouting related and situational. Okay, in this rotation, this is what they do, and this is what we're going to do. Everything, I had every single thing laid out because
that's what needed to be done.
It needed to be done. It was the only way, and the boys needed to perform, and they definitely did.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Coach LaRusso because I remember when we were doing the Staples volleyball piece after the last game last year, and then she said, "Well, the last game I lost was 2019 to this team, and this was 2023 we're talking about." So it's like she had been on a winning streak, but she still remembers that loss in 2019. It's still stuck with her,
Yeah.
But it's but that's cool, and it's you mentioned the gym you grew up in. I remember at least when I was a kid, and you always make your fantasy championship. You'd always play in a place that was close to home.
Yeah.
Right? It was almost like you always brought the championship close to where you were born, right? And that's really cool. That's a really cool story.
That's my fondest memory of that year.
All right. So and as you look ahead to this year, right? We talked a little bit about it and the big freshman class coming in and your seniors. If we sit here in June, and what do you evaluate as a successful season in your eyes?
I would evaluate a successful season would be a season where no matter what our record is, no matter who we lose, whether it's to injury or some other unfortunate thing, no matter what adversity comes our way, this team stays hyper-focused and still comes in every day just as motivated as day one. And all these younger players, like I said, they all get better. We have 2 seniors right now, Carson Mitchell and Mason Siskind. And, they've got a lot on their plate. So I'm sure they're going to stay motivated because this is it for them.
That's right.
And it's the other guys that need to follow suit because, like I said, I think this is going to be a very tough season. And my job, one thing that I'm going to be very forward on this year is not taking any team, not underestimating any team. Because, like I said, everything is so wide open, and all the teams, especially in the FCIAC, again, all these teams are very good. A lot of these schools have a lot of returning players, and no team is free this year. No, not one game is free this year.
Yeah, it seems like these volleyball games, they go tight all the way up to the end, right? You get to the 20s, and everybody's kind of like within range,
right? Yeah.
And it's like it's one serve, it's one thing that decides that entire game.
Yeah.
I almost feel like let's just start a set of 15-15 and play to the end. Save us a lot of time here. I know it's not the idea, but you get them. That it comes down to those crunch moments,
right?
And the experience that I think you build next year, hopefully it really translates this year.
Yeah, something that I'm going to try. So for those specific moments when it gets to 2020, the teams that the teams that usually win are the teams that are consistent in their skills. You could have like the best hitter you've ever seen, and if that team around him can't pass the ball in the moments, or they can't serve because they're tired, or they're not used to the moment, then that team probably isn't going to win. There needs to be consistency. And that's when that's what separates like the teams that win all the time versus the good teams who maybe don't have the best record in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting to say 'cause sometimes you go to a gym and you're playing a team like how could they only have this many losses? They have so good players.
Yeah.
But it's just like you said, they're not doing what they need to do at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think you answered. You said it really is about practice and how do you guys do that at practice?
Right.
And going at it. I mean, I think it's really exciting. I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great season. I mean,
me too. Yeah.
Right? I think we're gonna be in a lot of games. You guys are gonna be in a lot of games this year, and it'll come down to details. And So
we have 19 games. The spring season is very condensed. You play 3 games a week. You practice the other 3 days, and like I said, every practice you have to spend time, or I choose to spend time rather, on a scouting report that I make for the team the next day, no matter who it is, no matter what the record is, no matter who they have in the moment. It doesn't matter. It does not. The extra peripherals don't matter because you can be on the court with the team that you think you should walk through in 3, and here you are, and now it's set 5, and it's 11-10, and you're down.
Well, it's you mentioned like Danbury, and I have to mention this. Like last season, for example, I think we beat them 3-0 at home,
Mm-hmm.
and then lost to them
Yes.
away.
Yes.
So it's like you think about it, and one thing to listeners that don't know, like in volleyball, when you play the same FCX team, only the second game counts.
Right.
To the FCX standings.
Right.
So it's like, and you see that first one was a 3-0 easy win. Like, how did that happen? Right.
Look, teams are gonna have bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes your team is just not going to play well, and every coach knows this. You know, no matter how much you prepare at practice, no matter what you do, there's still that you walk into the gym and you're warming up and you're like, man, I really hope my team, like the team that I know, I hope they play to their potential.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say, and because like I said, of the familiarity I have with your team being around last year, I saw after a few games you would pull players aside and talk to them one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just elaborate on that, on what goes into, and I think it's probably one of your philosophies, to handle players one-on-one and talk to them, and what are those talks like? And if you can share, I'm not looking for to share individual, but what do you view those one-on-one times as of, and what are you actually working with them on that point?
So if I'm pulling a player aside and I'm speaking to them individually, especially if I call a timeout and I ask Coach X to talk to the team and I take one person aside, that means that there is something that I need to tell that player in the moment that doesn't pertain to the other team. Maybe it's a player who needs a little more encouragement. Maybe it's a player, maybe I'm identifying as a coach, you know, I'm seeing precursor behaviors as to like they're getting nervous. You know, and if they're a pivotal player in the moment and I need them to perform, then I do that as kind of like I'm trying to recenter their focus and to get them to perform, especially if it's a crucial moment. You know, that's pretty much what I'm doing when I'm speaking with a player individually. Yeah,
and I've seen you do it after games as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that kind of same thing to you, trying to refocus them? And
yes,
them?
Because I mean, and I'm sure your son can tell you all about this, but I communicate a lot with my players, starting at tryouts. I mean, I have and I do this mostly because my the numbers. It helps that the numbers are low for tryouts, but I have individual interviews with every single player who tries out. I say, this is where I see you for the season. You know, there's 2 other people ahead of you in your position who are going to play. And if you want to be on the team, you know, we want to have you, but you're probably going to be I see you as a practice player. That doesn't mean you're not going to ever see the court time, but this is where it is for you right now. And with players during the season, I still maintain the communication with them. You know, so maybe the day before in practice, a player is really struggling with something, you know, and maybe in that game that just happened, now it's after game, I'm talking to that player, maybe they were put in that position again and, you know, maybe they succeeded. Maybe they did what they needed to do, and now I'm praising them. And if they didn't, you know, now I'm talking and say, hey, this is, you know, it's where you need to be. I don't like gray areas when it comes to like players on my team knowing their role. It's also, again, it goes back to the team contract. Yeah. And all I want them to focus on when they're with me in the gym is playing to their potential, working hard, and trying to better themselves, even if it's 1% every day. You know? So that's really what it.
Yeah,
what
and
it
I'm a big believer of that. I always think that you're always trying. You know, your biggest competition is yourself. Mm-hmm. You should just try to outdo yourself a little bit every day, and you get there. Yeah, you shouldn't be comparing. But the reason why my question is because I think it's a unique approach. I don't see it a lot. You know, I'm around a lot of sports, and I don't see individual talk a lot. And I think it's a good thing because, like I said, because you develop that relationship where you can kind of go both ways. And like I said, having not that gray area, have everyone kind of know their role. Whatever the role is, doesn't mean it's going to be the same role for the rest of the season. But it's just at that point, that's what you think you're looking. Right. And I think people appreciate honesty.
Sure. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
At any point in life, that's where it goes, right? Yeah. Well, Coach, I mean, it's been so great having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to do some light stuff now, some quick hits. I'm going to ask you a little bit of personal questions, but not so much personal. Get the audience to see, to know you a little bit more outside the court here. All right? It's nothing too big. We'll get into that. All right. Texting or calling?
In regards to?
Just text or a call?
It depends.
Depends on the conversation?
It depends on the conversation, and it depends who I'm talking to.
Favorite social media platform?
Ugh,
Are you even in social media?
I don't have one.
Okay, you
I
don't
don't.
have-
I don't. I yeah. I don't
All
have
right.
one.
What's the last series you binge watched?
The last series I binged watched was I mean, I just did like my 10th rewatch of Breaking Bad.
Oh, there you go. You're my guy.
Yeah.
That's it. Love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah.
I
love
often
it.
I go back to like I give a lot of new things a chance. Like I'm actually super interested in Shogun.
Okay.
It's on Hulu. But I will find myself going back to other things that I've watched that I like really like.
I'm with you. I do a lot of reruns too. I
Yeah.
love because it's like if you're a fan of the show, and I am a big fan of Breaking Bad as well. It's like I think I've probably seen the series 3 times.
Yeah.
But it's like you always find something you didn't before. Right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how much little stuff they put into
Yeah.
all those scenes. Right?
Yeah.
It really is. All right. Salty or sweet?
Salty.
Okay, so if you're salty, pizza or sushi?
Oh, sushi. Easily.
That was easy.
Super easy.
Easier answer so
Super
far.
easy.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Ooh. Fiction.
On vacation, beach or sightseeing?
Beach. Because there's a volleyball net.
There, I like that.
Yeah.
All right. What's your best college memory?
My best college memory was breaking the dig record
I love that.
for volleyball.
For volleyball.
But this is something that is a little different. Overall, and this probably actually beats the dig record, is I did a semester in China in 2008, like right
okay.
after the Summer Olympics. And that was like probably one of the best things I've ever done in my entire life.
So let's talk about that because
Sure.
like China, it's like people would see it as a country, especially everything now. It's like negative, but I hear they're a very developed country. But how was your experience there? What would you take from there? Like you said, it was the best experience. What was the biggest thing that stuck with you on that experience?
That was the first time that I had really flown away from the nest because I commuted to the University of New Haven. Being from Shelton, it was super close. And I don't know how much you personally know about UNH, but it's not very big. There's not too much to do there besides go hang out in downtown New Haven. But I went there to play volleyball. So when I wasn't playing volleyball and I wasn't in the off season working out and doing preseason stuff, I was mostly going back to Shelton and helping out the high school girls and boys teams back then. Volleyball has been my life since I was like 13 when I fell in love with the game.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as China goes, I was in Beijing, so I'm in a major city.
Right.
Whole bunch of like my classmates were. I was in the international section of.
Was it a big group that went? I'm sorry to interrupt. Was it a big group that went, or
it was me and 3 other people.
Okay, small group.
Yeah. So New Haven's not really big on. New Haven is a very specialized school: criminal justice, fire science. The music production actually started to get really big when I was there I was there from 2006 to 2010. But my classmates, I was in the international section of a school called Capital Normal University. And I was in a class with students from all over the world who were learning how to speak and write Mandarin. So I had classmates from Indonesia, Japan, Russia, United Arab Emirates, Singapore, pretty much from all, like everywhere, France, everywhere. And it was great because a lot of them knew like a little bit of English, but getting to know them and hang out with them didn't really happen until all of our Chinese got to this certain conversational level.
All right.
And I'll never forget,
So you speak the language then?
I'm really not that great anymore.
I know,
really,
but
really
it's
not.
gotta be an insane language to learn.
It was very tough. It was
Wow.
very, very, very tough. I loved it. I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw. I'm not a crafty person. Love volleyball, and I loved learning and writing Chinese. That was actually my global studies was my major at the University of New Haven.
Right.
I went to the University of New Haven undeclared because I just wanted to play volleyball.
Right.
That's all. That was I was so focused on volleyball that I put academics behind me, which was genuinely a mistake. Any young people who are listening right now, academics come first. Please do not make the mistake that I did. Okay. But I'll never forget. It was about a month and a half into the trip, and I was leaving my school, and I was walking down the street to Wume, which is like a little shopping like mart that was perfectly, block away. And I saw 3 of my classmates, my Russian classmates. And
so they were Russian with you.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's like
this story keeps getting better and better. Keep going.
And aside from like up until that point, the conversations were just like, hi, good morning, like pleasantries. But we had a full conversation in Chinese about where we were going, what we were doing, what I was going to Wume for, and what we were all doing that night later. And we said goodbye, and I walked away, and I was like, oh my God, I just had my first like real Chinese conversation without having to stop and think about what to say.
That's crazy.
That
is a really cool experience. And you only got that through college.
Yeah, so I took this is an interesting story. So I actually failed a 101 history course my first semester at the University of New Haven. So I had to retake it the following semester, and I was very bitter about it.
I'll bet.
But it was a self-inflicted situation, nobody's fault but mine, And I had a very poor attitude going into this class, and I would sit in the front row, and I was so disinterested and so bitter about having to take this class that I just wouldn't pay attention. But what I would do instead was I would do my Chinese homework because it was the one thing that I loved at the University of New Haven as far as academics. Like I said, I didn't have a major.
Right.
So I'm sitting doing my homework, and the professor is he definitely sees what I'm doing. He doesn't say anything to me. He lets this go on for about, I'd say, probably like a week or two. And then after one class, he asked me to stay. And it was the first time he'd ever addressed me. He was like, we're going to be done in 5 minutes. You guys got to give me what you got to give me, but you are going to stay. And I was like, me? And he's like, you're going to stay. And I was like, okay, fine. So I stayed, and he's like, so what are you doing? And I said, well, like what I'm here. He goes, yeah, what are you ignoring me for? And I said, well, I'm doing Chinese, And he was like, let me see. And he took my book, and he was looking at it, and he was flipping through, and he was just kind of like, like, okay. And he gave it back to me, and he goes, do you have a game today? And I said, no. He goes, do you have practice today? I said, no, we had practice this morning. He goes, well, what are you doing at 4:00? And I said, I'm probably going to be home. He goes, I'd really like for you to come to my office because I want to talk to you about something. And I said, okay, sure. So I hung around I'm walking up to his office, and the University of New Haven has back then some buildings were very, very, very old. Maxey Hall was, the first floor was classrooms. The second and third floor was like offices for professors. But I think if memory serves, this building was a like orphanage way back when. Okay. I'm talking like it's crooked, built like it looked, right. It's very old. So this professor's office was on the top floor all the way at the very, very end of the hallway. And as you walked further down this hallway, it like shrunk, like the walls got closer and closer and closer.
Something out of a movie, right?
Yeah. And I just remember thinking like, not only am I in trouble, like I don't even want, like this building's going to fall.
Get out of here.
And I opened the door, I was so scared. I opened the door, and I just see a whole bunch of, his office was smaller than this room, but from wall to wall, Chinese art, Chinese textbooks, a whole bunch of all this other stuff. And this professor's name, his name is Brett McCormick. And I'm so thankful for this man because I thought that I was going to like get reamed,
right?
And I sit down, and he was just like, you thought you were in trouble? And I was like, yeah, definitely. Like I was rehearsing in my head, like what to say to you to like not have my coach find out about what's going on here. And he said, no, he goes, I've been to China multiple times. He said, this is my first year as a professor here. And I've started the global studies major. And I said, well, what is that? And he goes, well, it's a major where we focus on, you pick a concentration, whether it's international business, language, like something along the lines, whatever. He goes, and obviously, like, as you can tell, like I specialize in China, and I like what you're doing, even though you're not paying attention to me. Like, I'm gonna let it slide because it's Chinese.
Right.
And I just want to know. He's like, what's your major? I said, well, I don't have one. And he goes, I'd really like for you to consider declaring global studies as a major. And I said, okay, sure. And one of the requirements for global studies was you either had to do an internship somewhere or you had to study abroad. So I chose studying abroad, like, later on. I took all the Chinese courses I could take my freshman and sophomore year, and then I went to China the fall of 2008, right after the Summer Olympics.
That's amazing. Like, you think about how that story developed, right? You were in class doing homework for a class that you had failed, and then that led to your mate. That's insane.
Yep.
That's such a cool story. We could talk about that. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. That was really cool. Yeah. That was really cool. So that was the best college memory. Maybe along those lines, what's the thing you're most proud of?
As far as, like, coaching?
Life? No,
life. Oh, life.
Or it could be coaching. Maybe, like, it'd be, intercalated. But when you think about, I'm really proud of this, what comes to mind?
I don't know, really. I mean, I guess, what am I most proud of?
Or maybe just one. It doesn't, maybe not the most, but one thing you're proud of. Like,
I don't know if pride is the right word, but I am so incredibly thankful that I have, like, my family that I have. I was raised by two tremendous parents. I've had both sides, like, my grandparents on both sides were very, very much involved in my upbringing and childhood. Both of my parents, not only were they basketball players, but when I was in elementary school, they were both coaches, Shelton High School basketball coaches. My father was the boys coach for, I think, 23 years, and my mom was the girls coach for, I want to say, like, 6 to 8 years. But there was definitely a period there where basketball season would come around, and both of my parents were not never around, but you know how it goes.
Like you are now. You're gonna be busy. Yeah.
So my grandmother was the one who was picking up my sister and myself from school and hanging out with us at school. And both of my parents worked back then at the high school. So my grandmother would come down to the house and get us ready for school and, make sure we were, and it's not something that I always appreciated it, but, like, as life has gone on, like, I've seen all kinds of situations as far as home lives go and family dynamics go. And it's not something back then that I really could have appreciated the way I appreciate it now.
Yeah, it is important. I mean, I think, like, the relationship with, grandparents, with uncles, it's special. It really is. It's because it's like, it's being with family. Nothing's like family.
Right. Yeah, and you only have your family members for a certain amount of time. You never know how many days we all have, right? But
exactly.
For the days that I have and the memories that I have with my grandparents, I consider myself incredibly fortunate.
That's awesome. It's a great story. And what's one thing you can't live without? Maybe your family. throw you a curveball there. No. But let's stick away from them. What's one thing you can't live without?
One thing I cannot live without. It's I don't want to be cliche and say that material things are just material things and, like, they can be replaced, but they really can, but my family really extends, like, past my immediate family. Like, I have so many cousins and whatever, and
do you know how many you have? You said you don't know.
Well, I don't know how much time you want me to have here, but
no, no, it's all right.
My grandfather on my mother's side had to escape the Nazis when they came for their village in.
So where were they originally? So where they were?
In Russia.
They were in Russia, and they had to.
Yep. So.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely. Please expand.
Yeah.
On that.
So this is. I'll try to dumb this down, but my grandfather was the last one to come over from his family through Ellis Island, but I think it was like 3 or 4 years that he was separated from his mother and his father because they came first. So I have a huge Russian like side from my grandfather's side. Countless celebrations. There's a place in Shelton called the Russian Club. It's in downtown. My high school graduation was there. My sister's graduation was there. Like all my it's a very they're old country. English
Yeah,
their
exactly.
second language,
Yeah.
but
That's so
they
cool.
all made lives for themselves here, and I wouldn't be here without them. So family is pretty big to me, and your son can attest. I say academics, family comes first, academics.
Yeah, I think
and
you
then
said that in the
volleyball.
first meeting we had. It's
Yeah.
like the parent meeting as the freshman year. I do remember that. That was pretty
Yeah.
cool because first thing I saw is like this guy gets it because it really is. I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, everything else is kind of important, but when you put things in perspective,
Mhm.
that's what it comes down to.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you gotta always have perspective, right?
Yeah.
All right. So on the lighter side, which superhero would you pick to be as your best friend and why?
My best friend and why?
Superhero best friend.
Batman,
All right. Why Batman? What's so cool about Batman?
because I would love to be Batman, and hopefully I would become the next Batman.
Love that. Yeah. Okay. And the last one here. If you could go back and relive one day in your life, which day would that be? It doesn't have to be anything specific, but like, if you go back and relive one day in your life, what would that be?
If I could go back and relive one day in my life. Oh man. It would probably
I know I have quite a few, but
Yeah. It would probably be getting off the plane in Beijing for the first time. I'd like to relive that because that was a very crazy moment for me, and
the feeling, right?
the feeling was insane. The first day, I just is kind of a blur, and I'd with the knowledge I have now,
Right.
I would like to experience it again
That's awesome.
because that's a feeling that I've never really, I haven't really had since then because it's just so unique and like a specialized feeling.
Yeah.
Winning games is even the state games. Like that was a very surreal moment.
Mhm.
But I'm just the coach. Those boys, that's their moment. That from that year. That's their moment. So the China thing was a moment for me and only me.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's like I remember when I first got off the plane in the U.S. We came from Brazil, so I do remember. I mean, it wasn't probably as much, but yeah, it's like it's special because you feel like everything is new.
Yeah.
And you're taking it in like you're a baby, right? I mean, it's like you don't know anything. It's like you just gotten dropped here, and what is going on?
Sensory overload, like just so many things. So many things.
There's no scouting report for going there, right?
No, there is not. No, there is not.
Coach, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was great. All right, we want to wish you the best of luck this season.
Thank you.
Be following you guys very close and go Wreckers.
Thank you for having me. Very, very much.
Thank you, man.